You talked a lot about detoxing. I know your talk this morning, and that's something you're certainly an expert in. A lot of people would say, you know what, our bodies detox by themselves anyway, so why do we have to make an extra effort to do that at some sort of regular interval?
Well, the best way to look at what our bodies are not doing and to prove that this stuff is loading up were the two gigantic, phenomenal studies that were funded and done by the Environmental Working Group, EWG.org. And they did two studies. One was called Body Burden, the Pollution in People, and the other was called Body Burden, the Pollution in Newborns. The first one was the one in people, I think that was 2003. And they looked around the world. They tried the US, it wasn't good enough. They looked around the world to find laboratories that were able to analyze for and identify as many different poisonous substances as possible. They want to see how much stuff was in our cells. Mm-hmm. And they had to end up with many, many different labs, because some could they could get these 5 or 6 pesticides and herbicides, but they couldn't get solvents. These could get, benzene, toluene, and they ended up with, I think, between 5 and 7 different labs, and I think 3 countries, just to be able to get as many different poisons analyzed as they wanted to look for to see if they were there. And then they got people, I'm not sure if I would have agreed to this, they got people who agreed to fat biopsy, where they do a punch biopsy and they take some fat, probably from your butt, and divide it up into however many labs there were and send a sample into each of these different labs to analyze and see how many poisons there were in them. And they found, 60 to 95 poisons in every single person. And it's all still available. You can put in Body Burden, the Pollution in People, and you can find the PDF either on the web or on their website, ewg.org. And obviously, if we have 100 different poisons in us, the body's not detoxifying at all, because some of the poisons they were finding in people, those people were exposed to 30 years ago. So they're sitting there. So we know the stuff is not coming out, and that's the best proof that ever has been done, the EWG study. And then, of course, EWG, their study, Body Burden, the Pollution in Newborns, they wanted to see, well, how much of this stuff gets from mom into the fetus when it's developing in the womb? Well, how about if we get an agreement from a number of people at hospitals, and I don't know if they had to get agreement from the people or whatever, in addition to the hospital, to get the umbilical cord, because that's disposed of. Sure. And now, of course, they use it for stem cells and all sorts of things, but back then it was just disposed of. And they got a bunch of them, I think it was something like 12, and they analyzed for these same poisons in the umbilicus. And they found, I think it was, I forget if it was 187 or 287. I mean, even 50 would be a lot, but it was I think it was 187 different poisons. And that means these were all going into the child before the child's even born. So we are born with not a few, with not dozens, but with like 100+ poisons in our body. And what I like to say, which I didn't remember to say during the presentation downstairs a couple hours ago, what I like to say is, I don't care how we get here. How we got here. I don't get into those arguments. If you're religious, God made us and put us here. If you're an evolutionary person, we've evolved from the monkeys or something else. If you're some of the further out people, we've been implanted here by alien seeds that were. I don't care. It doesn't matter. The point is, from that point on, we have been evolving. And the second point is that at that time, no matter which of those 3 you choose, none of the poisons that are hurting us existed on the planet Earth. These are all things that we have invented, made in a laboratory, benzene, formaldehyde, chloramines, chloride, fluoride. Some poisons existed. I mean, lead and mercury are in our Earth's crust. But most of the things that we have in us now that are causing our immune system to be awful, that are causing autoimmune conditions, that are causing neurological conditions, because the poisons do, most of the neurological conditions are probably caused by buildup of poisons. All the different cancers are being caused by poisons that didn't exist when we were first put on this planet, however that was. And therefore, our detoxification system, primarily kidneys, liver, breath to some extent, sweat to some extent, skin to some extent, were never designed to be able to handle all those poisons, because they weren't here. So therefore, we're being overloaded, And anything we can do to make up my own word, underload, anything we can do to start pulling this stuff out, as long as we do it slowly enough that we don't further overload by doing it too fast, is going to reduce our risk for more different health conditions than we could even list.